It's an early start for the rescue team as they visit a house in West London.
Neighbours reckon they're a little bit testy. We've had a couple of reports of neglect at this address. All we're going to do is have a little look around your cupboards.
This is a bit of an Oh, stuck right at the back. Who knows how long that's been in here.
The team's only option is to remove the stricken jar.
Get him back, clean him up.
Soon, a more delicate case is called in.
Wonder if I could come in and have a little chat. I think you might know what it's about.
Yeah.
As the team have come to learn, offenders can be from all walks of life.
Promise he will go to a good home.
I'm sorry.
Of course.
Across town, Lucy is dealing with a very different call.
I don't know why you're here, to be honest with you.
It doesn't take long before new recruit Callum Howe finds another jar in a shocking state.
Oh no.
What's the matter?
It's baby one.
Okay, don't panic.
It's not been used in months.
All right.
Lid's stuck.
All right, gently, gently.
I can change.
For those new to the job, such scenes of neglect can be traumatic.
A little jar.
I've not seen one that small before.
After an emotional day, the team drop off the rescued jars at the rehoming centre,
Really love this one. Okay.
where a proud family welcomes their new addition.
Josh?
Love it, hate it, just don't forget it.
An interesting beginning to the conversation. Interesting advert, don't you think? It'll all come apparent why I'm going to show you that advert. Marmite. It's just a product. But what was in here was a lot of subliminal messaging. The two camps. You're either a Marmite person or you're not a Marmite person. What if somebody's in between? Why am I pointing this out? What's my reasoning and thinking on this? It's because we're going to have to now have conversations with ourselves. The hardest conversations of all. So let's talk about politics. You're either left or you're right, but where did it start? Well, here we have a lovely article here. Of course, everything will be linked below. France, 1789, the National Constitutive Assembly was deciding whether, under the new regime, the king would have absolute veto power or whether his capacity would be stripped back and heavily restricted to allow other voices to have a larger say. Those voting yea on absolute power to conserve the monarch took to the president's right-hand side. Those who spoke nay to the king and power to the revolution fell to the left. The division of society into two opposing sides, each neatly represented by anyone with hands, was the beginning of the left-right paradigm, a concept where societies tend to divide themselves into two opposing ideologies. So as you go through this here, I found something very interesting. Firstly, humans notoriously difficult to define, categorize and place into distinctive groupings, especially when it comes to our political leanings, either as individuals or whole societies. Simply put, our society is made up of individuals who hold personal and political beliefs that come from across the spectrum, not from one side of the divide or the other. While they might stand to the right of France's president on issues of welfare taxes and privatization, they belonged on the left-hand side on issues of consumption and freedom of speech. Left, right, and advertising. It's hard to get advertising revenue when content is unpredictable, and it's harder still to maintain shareholder support when the content may endanger other business interests. Banks greasy with oil interests will not pay advertising dollars to a publication committed to a scrupulous reflection of the population's environmental fears. Likewise, companies that feed off appealing to a consumer's ethical sides don't want their brand next to a right-leaning think piece on people seeking asylum. Advertising and corporate interests feed off the right and left paradigm. They are formulas that determine who their target market votes for, watches, reads and buys. So this article, which was, I don't know, when was it written? Hang on a second. In 2017, shows you the left-right paradigm. Obviously, the person writing this is probably more left-leaning than right-leaning. But what is us? Are we a collective or are we individuals? So that's the point I'm looking at here. So when we have governmental systems that are now pushing on this conflict between us, it is forcing us into camps. It is making us choose which side we want to be on. Most of us want to be on freedom. That is what most of us believe. Most of us want our independence back. So why are the political class doing this? To understand this a bit more, there's another article here, Left, Right, the History of a Paradigm. This one was in 2019, but I want to come down to this bit here. For Hitler and the Nazis, the enemy was not class, but anyone less than most advanced biological types of people and races. They sought to help a Darwinist view of biology along by advancing the German race. As the Marxist German theorizer Ludwig Wortmann wrote, the German race has been selected to dominate the earth. The Nazis fully believed that they were meant to fulfill the Darwinist arguments of the Friedrich Nietzsche, who wrote that the extinction of many types of people is just as desirable as many forms of reproduction, and that the tendency must be towards the rendering extinct of the wretched, the deformed, and the degenerate. So what are we witnessing now is we're seeing that actually playing out again. If you are somebody who's that, you're a terrorist. So we're now trying to categorize a whole group of people as domestic terrorists. Why? Again, to remove people that will question their rule of thought. This could be best seen at the moment in the UK as what's going on with the Scottish Nationalist Party, which is like a one-party rule in Scotland. Now, talking about Darwinism, this is where it all links quite uniquely, because the reason why I've shown Hitler, because Hitler created the eugenicist paradise. Margaret Sanger was a eugenicist who also believed in Hitler and his theologies, along with other people like Coca-Cola, Ford, General Motors, and of course IBM. Don't forget, we're going to talk about IBM at some point in the future. I'm going to bring you to this man, Thomas Henry Huxley. Now, who was he? Well, he was known as Darwin's bulldog, and he was the guy that was most vocal in pushing Darwinism to the forefront. Whereas Darwin really didn't want it out there as much, this guy, Huxley, was the main person behind it. Thomas Henry Huxley, born above a butcher's shop, was the youngest of 6 surviving children of a schoolmaster, George Huxley, and his wife, Rachel. Although Huxley received only 2 years of formal education at his father's declining Ealing school, his evangelicalism later marked his scientific rhetoric. From 1835, his father tried managing a bank in his native Coventry, which left Huxley footloose in the ribbon-weaving city. Huxley's parents were Anglicans, members of the Church of England, but the boy sympathised with the town's nonconformists or dissenting weavers who wanted religious equality and an end to the Anglicans' control of public institutions. Are you starting to see so much repeating themselves here? Fascinated by science and religions, he studied Unitarian works whose cause and effects, explanations, and denial of the duality of spirit and matter challenged the socially conservative views dominant in natural history and natural theology. Thomas Carlyle's books taught Huxley that the religious feeling of awe was distinct from theology, which dealt with gods and miraculous events. The teenager speculated, as he did radical dissenters, that morality was a cultural product, which left it open to scientific explanation. Those were the seeds of Huxley's agnosticism, scientific enthusiasm, and understanding of sectarian power play. So why is this guy so important? the name Huxley is connected with Darwin. Darwinism, Huxley. Okay? Science. Science is the new church. If you don't believe in science, you're a non-science believer, therefore you are a science denier. Have you seen how these kids react when you say, I don't believe in climate change? I don't believe in the rhetoric being put out by politicians and scaremongers, because they're not giving us evidence, they're giving us feelings. They are acting exactly that way. We're coming into a new dark age. This time, the balance has gone from the church to the science, and this is one of the main characters behind it, Thomas Henry Huxley. But he had children of his own, but more importantly, his grandchildren. One was Sir James Huxley, who was the head of the Eugenicist Society, and Julian Huxley, and his brother was Aldous Huxley, the guy that wrote the book Brave New World. I want to get into about Brave New World at a later date. This was written in the late 1920s. I show you what these science people want to create is their own utopia. This is what these people are screaming about and doing about, is they want to create their own utopia. Because anybody knows that utopia actually means no place. It doesn't exist. It's a myth. The term utopia was coined from the Greek ou, meaning not, and topos, meaning place. Not place. The idea of no place can be interpreted in a multitude of ways. Perfect fantasy, unique. All the variations of utopia have originated from the concept of made up. Utopia is no place, is unique to each individual, as it is not any one thing. So a person's utopia is their own individual utopia. You can't have a collective utopia. Because unless we're all clones, every single one of us is different. Which brings me back to this charming lady, Robin DiAngelo. So we're going to listen to some of her dribble now, just for a bit, because I know it will make you angry. It makes me angry.
To be white in so many ways is to be raised to be functionally illiterate on the topic of race. I am white, and part of being white is that I was not raised to see myself in racial terms. I mean, I understood that somebody had race, but not really me. To be white is to see oneself outside of race, to see oneself as a unique, special individual, exempt from the forces of socialization.
Debunking the myths about race. To be white does, and yet they're telling us we've got to think about ourselves as colour. Why? Why should we think? We don't think of ourselves as colour. We see people of different colours. We see people of different races. But most of us judge a person by their character, not the colour of their skin. What this woman is doing is projecting her racist thoughts and putting it into a collective that we all think the way she does. She hasn't taken on board of the word of individuality, but she's also using a very deceptive way of doing this. She's doing it by using guilt. But only guilt, she's using another aspect of the guilt. She's putting guilt on there, but also at the same time using shame. So shame and guilt together is creating this reaction of what people are doing. Guilt is aversive and like shame, embarrassment or pride has been described as a self-conscious emotion involving reflection on oneself. People may feel guilt of a variety of reasons, including acts they have committed or think they have committed, a failure to do something they should have done, or thoughts they think they are morally wrong. Guilt. It's an old trick that the church used to use in the old days. They used to make you feel guilty about something. You would come into the church to ask for forgiveness. You go to the confessional or to speak to the priest. He will then give his administration of what you have to do. You then do that. You then feel better for yourself. You feel less guilty. You go away. Then you come back. Then the next day you have the same thoughts. You go back again. This complete revolving around of manipulating people through guilt and shame. This is what this creature, this evil woman is doing. And her poison and rhetoric, as I proved in the last video, because she's a professor, an academic, just like the Protocols of the Elders of Zion was written by a professor and an academic. What happens is they are the catalyst for something far more dangerous that comes down the road. In the case of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, it produced Mein Kampf. Manipulation and guilt, the technique preferred by people who get offended for everything. As children, we have been taught to apologize. We were told it was a sign of good manners, and it's likely that one or more than one occasion during our childhood we apologized without being fully aware of what we had done wrong. As a result, the seed of guilt began to grow within us. But if you find that you often apologize without knowing why, simply because you know that somehow your words, attitude, or actions have annoyed someone, it is likely that this person is manipulating you emotionally, relying on your sense of guilt. Ergo, this woman. Ergo, the advert. If you watch it, if you watch the advert again, go, so after this, rewatch it again, you'll see that the good people taking in the jars of Marmite, well, they're so happy and loving, but the people that are hiding, they're so shameful and guilt. This is the reason why I picked this advert, was to show how these people, these social justice warriors, all these people within the universities and the school system are brainwashing our kids that way. And why? Because we didn't do anything about it. Because we are told, well, it's the arts, nobody does it, there's no money involved in it, blah, 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 blah. Yeah? Go and become this, go and become that. Forget that. Wrong. We need to get back into the culture. We need to understand the culture more fully. In this guy, William Hall, I like this guy. He's very, very great in how he presents himself, and he does a phenomenal job. So let's listen to what he's saying here. Without the bloody adverts, of course. Hang on 1 second.
Are telling kids now that all white people perpetuate systematic racism, and they are forcing kindergartners to watch videos of dead black children to warn them about racist police. This is evil. This is pure evil. The teachers are encouraged to be more woke in their efforts at anti-racism.
So remember what I said, the dangers of what is happening here. What is happening here is the people are taking this D'Angelo's work and taking their interpretation of it and then evolving it. Sooner or later, somebody is going to create another version of it, like a Mein Kampf in the future, which will justify the murder of people. This has to stop. We are all individually different, but every single one of us has a bias. But I'll get to that in a minute. This I took from an old book of mine, Practices of Looking, Images and Ideology. To explore the meaning of images is to recognize that they are produced with dynamics of social power and ideology. Ideologies are systems of belief that exist within all cultures. Images are important means for which ideologies are produced and onto which ideologies are projected. When people think of ideologies, they think in terms of propaganda, the crude process of using false representations to lure people into holding beliefs that may compromise their own interests. This understanding of ideology assumes that to act ideologically is to act out of ignorance. It is that particular sense that the term ideology carries a pejorative cast, which is very true. Because when somebody's ideological, oh, they're a cultist, oh, they're this and that. So if somebody has a belief system, it is their belief system. We shouldn't denounce it in any way, but try to understand what their ideology is, what their thoughts are, what their processes are, and how they came to it. We should ask them, why do you think that? Why is it that you have that image of things when we see something totally different? We have to learn to have those conversations with one another again. Instead of, oh, they're a crackpot, leave them to it, that's the wrong answer. But there's a whole reason why. Now, this book, I can't keep putting on about, is the key to it. So there's two books now I've told you about now, which is the Aldous Huxley, which is Brave New World. I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. Because then you can decide which caste system you want to be in. But like I said, we'll get into Brave New World at some point. But let's go to this one now. Yeah, the Mechanics of Propaganda. This is out of this book. Okay, Propaganda. The media by which special pleaders transmit their messages to the public through propaganda include all the means by which people today transmit their ideas to one another. There is no means of human communication which may not also be means of deliberate propaganda, because propaganda is simply the establishing of reciprocal understanding between an individual and a group. Remember that. I told you this. Individual, collective. So we've got this one person putting their ideas over to a group or a collective. The important point to the propagandist is that the relative value of the various instruments of propaganda and their relation to the masses are constantly changing. If he is to get full reach for his message, he must take advantage of these shifts of value the instant they occur. 50 years ago, the public meeting was a propaganda instrument par excellence. Today, it is difficult to get more than a handful of people to attend a public meeting, unless extraordinary attractions are part of the program. The automobile takes them away from home, the radio keeps them in home, the successive daily editions of the newspaper bring information to them in office or subway, and also they are sick of the ballyhoo of the rally. So basically, this guy at the time, and this was written in 1929. Sorry, 1928. So he didn't have social media, which has now become the town square. And what's happening on there? All the chitter-chatter. People using their own propaganda to push their ideas out onto a group. Well, I don't know. Let's talk. Oh, yes, QAnon as a classic example. Taking one person's idea, creating a collective. Organising chaos. The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organised habits and opinions of the masses is as bloody things keep popping up. Opinions of the masses is an important element in a democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true power, ruling power of our country. Well, that invisible government, people, is our bureaucracies. It is the civil servants, the people that work behind the so-called people we elect. It is them that connect with all these other organisations within the corporate organisations that will send their lobbyists to work with these people to get what they want. So when you have corporations, labour and government coming together, you have created a fascistic society, because that is what has happened again. Now, we all have the thing which this woman, this creature, as I'm going to call her, has put upon, is our own personal biases. Every single one of us has our personal biases. So, 1 second, I'm going to get this. Because we truly are living in a clown world. And I came across this the other day, but I remember something I hadn't finished painting, which is that. The clown. The unfinished painting, which I'm not bothered about if I don't finish it or not, because it's there to remind me of something. But let's go to personal biases here. I'm going to play this. I want you to look at this, and I want you to see your personal reaction from the moment you first watch it. Then go away and watch it again and see everything within the video that's a subliminal messaging in there. This guy is very clever. His girlfriend is very clever. They have taken on board the cultural thing by being independent. And that's what we've got to do. We've got to create our own independent businesses, our own independent monetary system, our own independent way of communicating, our own independent platforms. We have to break out of this collectiveness, because as soon as you go into that, that's where the poison starts. The propaganda pumps in. And then it's my side versus your side. Marmite lovers versus Marmite haters. So let's play a little bit of this first so you get a flavour of it, because I hate rap music. My personal bias, I cannot stand the music. But this got me interested.
You worry about leaving a better planet for our kids. How about leaving better kids for our planet? Entire generation offended at everything, getting mad that a human thinks all lives matter. We don't need black or white or left or right. What we need is common sense, we need balance. We're all in the same boat, why you trying to make holes? If they sink, we sink, this is madness. I'm offended that you're offended by me taking offense. Can't build a wall, why does your house have a fence? I believe in two genders, I'm not mad at the rest. I'm just confused when a dude has a beard and some breasts. We won't always agree, no, I don't hate all police. No, I don't think that the system's racist, I just think the system hates people.
Did you catch it? The system, the colour green, the system's about money. So, on that note, I will leave you to think about a few things. But more importantly, I suggest people start reading this book by Bernays, Propaganda. And if you've got the time, read Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. Because Aldous Huxley's brother was Sir Julian Huxley. Their grandfather was the man that pushed Darwinism. The people behind eugenics. This is a guy that tells you what their plan was, what their idea was, what their utopia was. The place of no place. Their idea of utopia, where everybody lived there and they didn't own anything and they were all happy. Where are we hearing that from? Oh, that's right, the Great Reset, where you don't own anything, but you'll be happy. Just think. I'm not asking you to believe what I'm saying. Read it for yourselves. I'll link stuff below. You can and take it from there. Like I said, most of you look at this guy and are probably horrified and think, oh my God, but this guy is so intelligent with his lyrics and how he puts it together. Personally, I don't like the music, but I listen to what he's saying because it's quite informative how he's putting it out there. And he's, I'll tell you, let's do this a bit. I mean, this has had millions of views already. So he's basically anti-establishment, and through doing that, he has created this base. Now, reaction. So if we press that, Clown World reaction videos. So here we go. We have Clown World reaction. Got this guy, we've got this guy, we've got these people here, we've got this couple here, we've got these people here, we've got these people here, this woman here, this guy. You could keep scrolling down. Because what he's doing, he's creating this music, and these people doing the reaction videos have got also their followers, and these people are following that as well, which is creating this great big huge community online that's going through and digesting what he's saying, what he's doing. He's getting the message out. As you go down, you can keep scrolling down and down and down and down and down and down and down, because this is how he's doing it. He has created this platform, and the reaction people do that. He's independent. He doesn't have to. He's not owned by any record company. He's not controlled by anything, and he's too big for YouTube to take down. We have to evolve. We have to adapt. We have to create a society of art, of films, of music, of literature. We have to embrace all that. But more importantly of all, we must go and educate our children properly. Instead of filling their heads full of nonsense, if they say to us, well, why is this happening? Get them the answers. Give them all sides of the equations. Like I said, there are two sides. But like to everything, there is two sides to an argument, and that's what we have to give our children, the 2 points of view, and then they make an informed decision between them. They might lean more one way than the other, or they might not lean either which way, and they might go down the middle. But that's their choice. Instead of letting them be put through hell from people like this, whose collective in the school education system is poisoning our children's mind, making them hate themselves, which will do more damage than you can possibly imagine. By making people feel guilty and self-loathing and self-hate will cause more people to self-harm, more people wanting to get rid of their colour of skin, more people hating the colour of skin, suicide rates, because of this woman's pervasive and evil ideology. I'm white. So am I. I couldn't care less about my colour of skin. It means nothing to me. It should mean nothing to you. It should be about the person you talk to, whether they're a good person or a bad person. And it doesn't matter about the colour of skin. It matters about the character of the person. And this evil ideologies of these people must be stopped. They have to be stopped. Ta-ta for now. Tschüss.